Hello and welcome to today's Partner Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Enterprise Edition Tech Talk. Today's topic, integration between Dynamics 365 for Sales and Dynamics 365 for Finance. Presenting from Microsoft for us today, we have Senior Program Manager Christian Wright, and handling our Q&A, we have Senior Software Engineer Abhishek Ghosh. So without any further delay, Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Janice. So welcome to this session. We'll be talking a lot about prospect to cash and the Dynamics 365 integration. So let's jump right into it. So what is this prospect to cash? And what is the integration we're looking at here? The prospect to cash scenario, that is integration between Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales and Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Enterprise Edition. This is where you want to do your marketing and sales processes in the sales system, and in the finance and operations system, you want to do fulfillment and invoicing. So what are we using for this? We're using something called the data integrator, and the concept is built around the Power Apps. So in order for this to work, you will need to set up connections in the Power Apps. Then in the data integration, you'll need to create projects. These projects, you can create them from templates. We have a number of templates that cover the entire prospect to cash flow. So from these templates, you create the projects. Now all of these projects, they can control how data is synchronized from a source system to the common data service, and then to the destination system. The source system, in this case, could be the sales system, and the destination system could be finance and operations. Of course, it could also be in the other direction, so the source system would be finance and operation, and the destination would be sales. If you want to access the data integration feature, that can be done from two locations, either from the Power Apps Admin Center or from the Business Platform Admin Center. It's basically the same interface you will get to, but there are these two options. Now, before we get started, there are a few system requirements that I would like to talk about. For finance and operations, it is required that you run the July 17th release with Platform Update 8. And on top of this, we need you to add two hotfixes. Actually, if you just install the latest one, the one with the highest KB number here, that will automatically pull the changes from the one with the lower number. So you just need to install the one and you will get both of them. For sales, you need to have an online version of Dynamics 365, and here we're looking at the 16.12 version or later. On top of that, you need to have a prospect to cash solution for sales, and it has to be version 14 or later. The latest version right now is version 14, but we are planning to release more versions in the coming future. To get more information about this, I would suggest that you take a look at docs.microsoft. There is a link here. I'll go there in just a second to show you what information you will find here. This will help you guide the setup, both for the data integrator, but also for the prospect to cash scenario. So let's actually start out there. I will go to the docs page here. So you can see this is on docsmicrosoft.com. I'm looking at prospect to cash information here. On this page, you will have all the information you need for getting started with prospect to cash. You can see the system requirements I was talking about here. There are links to the hotfixes you need to install. Also from here, you will be guided through how to install the solution for prospect to cash on the sales side, and you can also see the link here to download it from customer source. Behind this, you will see that there is also a bunch of information for each of the templates here. So if I go to the first page here, you will see a lot of information about the template to synchronize products, the flow, what kind of modifications we have done in sales, if there are any preconditions and the mapping set up, and finally screenshots of the actual mapping done, so you can get a feel for what it is that's in the template. And we have that for all the templates going down here. On top of this, we have the data integration using the common data service here. If you click that, here you will go to some general information about the data integration. So this is the place to look for how to set it up, how to make the connections, how to modify projects, and all of that. So all of this is in here. There's a bunch of good information. Just scroll down a little bit. See how to run a project, how to prepare the common data service, how to set it up, and all of this. So I strongly recommend to take a look at this if you want to dive into it. So that was just the getting started here. Another thing that I would like to show you, that is if we go to Power Apps. Let me go here. We have the Power Apps. So I was talking about the connections. And with the connections, it's important before you start to set up connections that you check that you're in the correct environment here. I'm using this one in Europe. You can see if I go here that I have a bunch of connections. And if I want to add a new connection, I would go to New Connection. In here, you can add connections to a lot of different things. What we're looking for here, that is something within the Dynamics family. I'll type in to just filter it a bit. Here we have connections for the sales product, and down here we have for finance and operations. As you can see, the names are not 100% updated, but this is finance and operations, and this is sales. So you would simply click this. If I want to set up a new connection, you would click it. I will not do that right now because I have all the connections I need, but you would click it, and then you would just enter the credentials for a user on the environment you want to connect to that has the rights that you need. So that was the connection. So it's important that your connection match the environment that you're using, because we'll be using that when we go to the data integrator. So if I want to go to the admin page, I would click here, Admin Center. And I already have that open, I can see here, but that would take me here to my admin center. This is where I have all my projects, and this is also where I have my connection sets. So if you see here, I have a bunch of connection sets lined up here. If I want to create a new connection set, it would take me to an experience like this, where I will select a name for it. Then I will select my connection. We could take this one here, and it would load my environment. And once it's done, I would choose it, and I would go on and choose my I would choose the connection for the next one here. Let's see, we can take, that would be common data service in the middle. So here I have a bunch of them. I'll just take the first one here. I'll not save this one for now. My common data service, I was using this one, Europe. So this would be for a two-legged. So this is just for moving from the source to the destination. That would in this case be CDS. Now I want to add a third one because I want to continue on to CRM in this case. So I could take this one and take my base here. So now I have my connection for the finance and operations up here. I have for my CDS in the middle and for my sales system down here. In the organizations, I would type in the organization in Dynamics 365 for operations, that could be USMF, Common Data Service, that could be Org 001, Dynamics for sales, that could basically be anything. In this case, I guess I'm actually using the environment name here, so that could be this P2C, and then so on. I'll not create this, but this is how you create a new connection set. Okay, that was just a short introduction for those of you who want to get started with this. But you can read a lot more about it on the web page that I just showed. So, prospect to cash. So what is it that we're actually synchronizing here? The plan is that we will generate leads in the sales system, create opportunities from that, and generate a quote. Then we want the finance and operations system to take over creating the sales order here, fulfilling the sales order, and finally creating the invoice and send that to the customer. So this is what we call the prospect to cash flow. And what kind of templates do we have for that? We have a template that goes and synchronizes accounts from the sales system to customers in finance and operations. So this is one template. Then we have another template that goes in and synchronizes contacts, which are what we call active customers. So this is a contact in the sales system that you're selling to. As we cannot sell to a contact in finance and operation, we will synchronize that to a customer. So there's a little bit of migration going on there, and then we put it into the customer table inside of finance and operations. For contacts that are related to an account, we want to keep them as contacts because this would be a contact for a specific customer inside of finance and operation. So we will synchronize these from contacts to contacts. For products, we go in the other direction. So that means that in this case, finance and operations is the master of the data. So products will be created in finance and operation and synchronized to the sales system. This means that in the sales system, we want them to be read-only as they are maintained in finance and operation. But when we create the product in sales, we also generate a price list item for the specific product. So this means that we will generate both a product and a price list item inside of the sales system to keep track of the sales price and also to enable the product for being added to a sales order or a quote. Now when we get to the quote, we want to ensure that the product that we add to the quote is actually synchronized. It's actually something coming from our finance and operations system, so we have generated some logic for that. We also generated some logic to submit or activate the quote, so we can control when we actually want to send it to the finance and operations system. This means that you can work on the quote, you can edit it, and once you submit or activate the quote, then and only then will it be picked up by the integrator and synchronized to finance and operations. In finance and operations, it will read the record and insert it. There will be some order number overriding, so we keep track of that. And also we have some transformation of the discount as the discount systems in the two systems differ a bit. Now this quote can be turned into a sales order in finance and operations. So here we will go ahead and validate that the customer that's on the sales order is actually synced as part of the header line, meaning that this customer was actually generated in the sales system to begin with. So this is not a sales order that I manually created in finance and operation for a customer that was originally just created in finance and operation and therefore would be unknown to the sales system. So we have a check for that. But you would never hit that issue if you make sure you create all your accounts in the sales system. Again, there is something about the discount where we had to make some modifications to make it all flow nicely, and similar with tax and totals, but I'll get back to that when we get to the demo. Now on the sales side, when we get the sales order moved over to sales, we'll keep track of the processing status. This means that the sales rep in the sales system will know how far the sales order is in the process. He will know if it's confirmed, if we started shipping it, if it's completely shipped, if it's been invoiced, and so on. So we'll keep track of that in the sales system as well. Also, we will make the order read-only, as we don't want the sales rep to modify anything here, because it would not flow back to finance and operations. Now for the invoice, when we invoice it in finance and operation, that invoice will also be synchronized to the sales system. And again here we have some of the same checks here. We check for the customer if it was a manual created invoice. And then again we have done some extra calculation around the discount, the tax, and the totals to make those end up nicely in the sales system. So that is the full flow of prospect to cash. Now let me show you the full list of templates that we have for prospect to cash. We have right now in total 7 templates. We have accounts. That was the one moving accounts from sales to customers in finance and operations. Then we have contacts moving from sales to finance and operations. Then we have contacts moving from sales to become customers in finance and operations. Then we have products moving from finance and operations to sales. Then we have sales quotes from sales to finance and operations. Then we have the sales orders from finance and operations to sales. And finally, the invoice from finance and operations to sales. I have an example where we'll dive a little bit into details about what's going on with the product synchronization here when we move from finance and operations to sales. So, what do we actually synchronize? We synchronize from finance and operations the release product. We move that to sales into the product, and we also generate a price list item. Here it's important to notice that we only export products that are sellable. This means that they should have the required information to be used on a sales order. The same rule applies when a product is validated when we want to validate it on a release product. I will show that as part of the demo. So what do we actually synchronize? We synchronize the product number and all the things that you're seeing over here. I'll show that on the next slide here. So here we have finance and operations on the top and sales on the bottom. So we synchronize the product type, meaning if it's an item in this case. It could also be a service. We synchronize the product number to the product ID. We synchronize the product name. We synchronize the description from the two systems. We synchronize the selling price from finance and operation. Notice this is the base selling price from the product, and we put that into the price list item in sales. We also synchronize the base cost from finance and operations to the current cost in sales. Then from the unit of the product in finance and operation, we take the description and move that over to the default unit. We also take the decimal position to the decimal supported and synchronize that. And finally, we also check whether or not it's a stock product and move that information over. So this is the information that is synchronized for products. Similar, you will find all the documentation in the docs.microsoft that I was showing you before. Here you can find information about all the other templates as well. For product variants, so how do we handle that? As it is the product number that we're using as the key when we move the product over, this means that we will take all the information about the release products, including the product variant. So as you can see here, the product number from finance and operations is what will become the product ID in the sales system. So this means that every variant of a product in finance and operation will be created with a unique product ID inside of sales. And the product variants can include all the product dimensions, which are color, configuration, size, and style. Now there are a few preconditions. Before you run the very first synchronization of products, you must populate the distinct product table for the existing products. Without this, it will not synchronize anything. So this is important. All of this is also described. And on the sales side, it is important to notice that products can be created with status draft or active. This is some standard sales functionality, and this is something you set up in the settings. If you set it to draft, it means that you cannot use the product coming from finance and operations until you manually go in and activate it. But you have the choice to say that new products should always be created as active, and if you set that, then the products synchronized from finance and operation will automatically become active, and you can use them straight away in the sales system. And then you have to ensure that you create a price list for the currencies that you use in finance and operation, and that it's matching the mapping that you have set up. Now in the sales solution, we have added a few extra fields. There is a field called is externally maintained. This can be either yes or no. So when we are synchronizing a product from finance and operation into sales, we set this value to yes. By doing so, we ensure that you cannot modify the product, but if you had created the product manually inside of sales, you would be able to modify it. Secondly, we use this on the quotes and sales orders to control what we want to synchronize to finance and operations. So we only want to synchronize quotes that solely exist of externally maintained products. If we didn't have this check, we could end up in a situation where we would synchronize quotes that were partly consisting of externally maintained products, meaning they would be from finance and operations, but also products generated locally in the sales system that would not exist in finance and operations. And finally, the last change we made was that in case you didn't specify a valid price list, it will try to find the first price list with the same currency as what you're using on the product and generate the price inside of that. So with that, let's move on to the full demo of Prospect to Cash, where we'll demo the account synchronization from sales to finance and operation. Then we will synchronize a product from finance and operations to sales. Once that is done, we will take this account and the product, generate a order and synchronize that. Then we will make the fulfillment and invoice the order and see that the invoice is also synchronized. So with that, I will jump over to the sales system, go here, and I will create a new account. Say I create Iceman 25 Incorporated, and he has a phone number that's easy to remember, and he is still using fax. He has a website, and an address. That's in Washington. Give him an address. We can also say that they have 250 employees. Now we're happy with this. I'll save it. You can see I've done that before. It detected a duplicate due to my phone number. But now what you will see here with the account is that we are generating an account number, which is what we will carry over to finance and operations. So now let me switch to finance and operations, because we also wanted to create a new product. So I'll do that right away. Create a new product here. We'll sell some ice cream here. I'll call it 25. And item model group, I'll take FIFO. Item group audio, this is just some default from the demo data, site and warehouse here. We don't need the tracking dimension. And we sell it in eaches. So with that, we have our product here. I'll go down and give it a sales price. Let's make it $199. And we'll also give it a cost price. Let's say it's a little cheaper for us to produce it, like that. I'll save it. Now I mentioned that we would only synchronize products that can be validated, and you can validate a product here on the Products tab. You can validate it, and you can see this was successfully validated because I filled in all the required fields to add it to a sales order, basically. Now, as we want to sell this product in just a moment, I want to ensure that we have some on hand. So I'll just go in and make a quantity adjustment. I'll just put a bunch on the warehouse. Let me just add 1,000. Here we go. So now we should have products in here. So I think let's go ahead and look at the customers here. So if I go to all customers now in finance and operations, and I search for ice, you can see here that we have the Iceman 25 Incorporated that we just created. It's right here. You can see we have the address moved over with the name and description of him. We have the account number that was generated from sales. We also have the number of employees. If I scroll down a bit, you will see the fax number, the phone number, and the URL that I also entered. They are also synchronized over. So here we have our customer. Now let's move to sales system, and I want to see my product. So I'll go to products here. Some ice cream here. Ice cream 25 here. That's one we just created. So you can see I have it here. It's sold in eaches. The decimal supported for eaches, that is 0, as you cannot sell half an each. The current cost is $149, and if I scroll down here, you can see it was added to the price list with the price list item, and the price is here, just as in finance and operations, $199. So now we have our account and our product. So let's go ahead and create a sales order. Now, in order to get this to work, by the way, what I did, I will show that in the demo in just a minute. I went in and I set up automatic synchronization. So I set it to run as a batch job, so it will pick it up, and you can set that up to run with a few minutes interval, and that's what I did here to make sure it picked it up for the demo. Now let me move over here, and we will create a sales order. I'll create a new one. And we want to use our new customer, which was the guy down here. Everything is fine. And we also wanted to use the new item number, this one here. Let's say we sell him 2 of these. It's some fairly large ice cream, by the way, $199 I would say. But anyway, so he gets 2 of those. Now, he has to pay some tax, unfortunately. I'll just choose California here. And spare parts, I didn't set that up on the customer, otherwise it would have shown up automatically here. I could have done that. That was the tax. Let's say he wants to have that sent as well. So I could go here and add a freight charge. I'll just do that. Add some freight. Say there will be $10 for the freight. Now the customer asked about, so what is the total now? We can take a look at that. Let's look at the totals. That will be $436. Then he kindly reminded me that we are running a 10% discount. So I'll go ahead and add that so you can get it a little bit cheaper. I'll put 10% discount on the line here. So he will get 10% on the product, but obviously not on the freight and so on. So if we look at the totals now, we can see that it dropped below $400 to $349.17. So with that, the customer agrees to the order. So I'll go ahead and confirm the sales order with the customer. I'll go ahead. And now in order for it to be picked up by the synchronization, I will go in manually and calculate the sales totals. Normally I would have this running in the background as a batch job, so I don't have to press it here. But it just takes a few seconds for it to run. And basically I did this to avoid that we have to wait a few minutes for the next batch job to be picked up. So now that we have all of this, let's go to Power Apps, because now we want to look at the project. So if we look at the project from before, or actually before I do that, let's go ahead and start the synchronization of the sales order. So I'll go to my project and I'll start the synchronization. Run project here. Now while this is running, I'll just go ahead and show you a few things. We'll get back to here where we can see the status in just a few minutes. I want to show you something else before. So if I jump out here and look at some of the other projects, you can see here for my account, this one here. This is the job that synchronized my account from sales to the customer in AX. You can see it's set up to synchronize every minute. Normally, that's a little, I would say, that's being a little bit hard on it. Normally, I would set it to a minimum of 5 minutes, but for this demo to not have any waiting time at all, I set it to 1 minute. So you can set it to run manually, or you can set it to occur every. I could put in 5 minutes, I could put hours, days, weeks, months, depending on what I want. And then I can put a starting and an ending time. So I put an ending time, basically to ensure that it doesn't run forever if I forget to switch it off. And I did exactly the same with my products. Now if we go into the project here for our sales orders, you can see that we are synchronizing order headers and order lines. If I take a look at the order headers and the mapping here, you can see that this is the mapping of all the fields that I'm synchronizing. Now, most of these are just simple with a map type here with an equal sign, meaning that we just move over the data. Some of them, however, could have a function like this one here. You can see that some of the values we want to transform them. So for instance, delivered from finance and operations means shipped in CDS. And if I want to modify any of these, I would just go in and modify them here. You can see I have all the fields that are available in the entity. And if I want to add a new mapping, I could go below the existing ones. Let me just pick the first one here. It might not make sense. So now I'm mapping this price including sales tax to sales order ID. That would not be a very good mapping, most likely. I could add a transformation here. So either say that I want to default something, 1, 2, 3. Now it will default this value. But because I have selected a field in the source here, it will only default the value in case there are no values coming over. So if it's blank. If I didn't have anything selected here, if I had none, like the one below here, then it would always default the value 1, 2, 3. I can also do truncation, meaning that it will truncate whatever information I have to, for instance, in this case, 5 decimals or characters. I can also do value map. This is where I would say what you were seeing before. 1 should become A, 2 should become B, and this can be a little bit hard to type in here maybe, and especially if you typed it in and you want to reuse it, then it's nice to show the JSON, because then you can copy paste from here and I can take it. If I copy it now, I say cancel. Now we don't have it in here, then I say I want to add transformation, and I can say value map, show JSON. I can replace this with what I just copied in, say accept, and you can see now I have my mapping again. So that's a fast way of doing that. So now I don't want to have this one in here. I'll delete it again. And I think we should go back and check how we're doing on our sales order. I'll just leave this page. So I'll jump to the execution history. And let's see here. If I refresh, how far we got. So you can see here that it completed 3 minutes ago. It did one upsert. Upsert, that's a abbreviation of updates and inserts. So it either updated or insert something. In this case, it was a insert. So it created one new header, and for that header it created the one line that we added. So let's go ahead and verify that. Let's go to the to sales and look at the sales order. So in here, I think the easiest way to find it is to filter or sort by the order ID. And then it was this Iceman 25 incorporated. So here we have our sales order inside of sales coming from finance and operation. You can see the account name, the price list picked. You can see the bill to and invoice address. They are the same as we didn't modify it. So these are the address we entered earlier on the account. On the line here, you can see that he is buying ice cream, the 25 for $1.99, 2 pieces of that, and he gets a discount of $39.8, which is our 10% of the total, because here it's the total. This end up with this amount here, because we also have the tax in here. You can see the tax down here. That's our tax. So if you recall, this is our total amount, and they all match up. So that was the sales order. One thing to notice is that the processing status right now is confirmed because we have confirmed the sales order. This is a new field added with the prospect to cash solution. And also notice that the sales order here is locked down because we don't want it to be edited, because this was synchronized from finance and operations. This is controlled by this is maintained externally field here. So now let's go back to finance and operation and look at the sales order. I will go ahead and just do one modification here. I just want to show you that we can track the status change. So let me just post a packing slip, meaning that we will ship it. So now we have it, and we should have it shipped by now. Yep. So now I'll just go ahead and calculate the totals. More. And then once that's done, let's go over here and trigger it again. And there was a question to see the value mapping. So let me just show that. So we have just started. So while that is running, let me go ahead and show you the mapping in here. So Abhishek, was it something specific around the value mappings or just the value mappings? Okay. So what I was showing before, we can show some of the value mappings. For instance, the first one here, this is a default to this organization that's set by the system. This is not super interesting, but you can see this is a default. And if I take one of the value mappings, for instance, this one here, this is the value map option. And here you can see that, for instance, I transformed delivered into shipped. And I think we also have some here for a country region code. You can see on the left-hand side, it's using 3-letter codes, and on the right side, it's using 2-letter codes for the country region. And we would have some other examples. Might have order status here. You can also see here we have something where they're slightly changed on each side. But you can create your own value map as you please, as I was just showing before. So let's see if our sales order completed. So I'll go back here and check up on it. We can see it says it's running. I'll just refresh the page here to get the latest information. You can see it's done, and we got one upsert. So in this case, it was not inserting anything, but it was updating the sales order. And you can see here that it's the order header. It's the move of the data from AX to CDS, and then from CDS to CRM. So it's the 2 steps that are completed here, and similar for the order line. So if we go to the sales order now, and I'll just refresh that, we should be able to see that it's no longer confirmed, but now it is shipped, as you can see right here. So now that we have shipped the order, we also want to send the invoice to the customer. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go to the sales order. And I'll go to Invoice and invoice it. Say OK here and invoice everything on the order. There we go. Do this trick again, as I don't have the batch job running. So now we have a invoice sales order in finance and operation, and obviously that also generated an invoice in finance and operations. So let's go and synchronize that. So I'll go here. And now I'm doing all of this manually to let you follow what's going on, but of course I could have set this up. I would normally do that as a batch job, like I was doing for the account and products in the beginning of the demo. So now let me just go ahead and run the synchronization. I can start it from the list here. I can say run project, I'll do that. And you could see there were other options as well. We can take a look at those because we also want to synchronize the invoice. So I can show that for the invoice. I can say run project. This will synchronize the delta since the last synchronization. It's keeping track of that. So this is what's causing it not to synchronize all my records, but only the ones that were added or modified since the last synchronization. However, if I click run project with all data, it will ignore that and take all the data it finds and re-synchronize it, so to speak. You can go to the details. That's the same as clicking the line. You can see the schedule. You can jump to the execution history, and then you can save a project as a template. This is very useful because if you have created a project, you can save it as a template and you can share it. If I save this as a template, I will give it a name and a description, and then I can say it's shared with me only, or it's shared with everyone in my organization. If I click this, everyone within the organization will be able to see this template and create projects from it. So that's the way to share a project. Now I forgot if I started the invoice synchronization, so let me just check. I might not have actually. No, I'll run it right away. So while this is running, let's take a look at the project here that I'm not using right now, that we can play around with a bit. So up until now, you have just been seeing that I have been using standard projects that were created from the templates that we have provided to you. But you can also create your own project. So basically, you'll just create a project from a template that has the right direction, either from sales to finance and operations or the other direction, whatever you want. And then you can take these tasks. If you say that you would like to add another one, you could do that. You can choose what entity you would like to synchronize. I don't know, it's a very small one here. Anyway, let's say it's activities, and here for some reason it's, let's say, cases, and on the last one, of course I have to make sure that this makes sense, but this was just to illustrate. Then I can give it a name. This is not something we want to keep. And then I would say some organizations, and I can create it. Now this will generate a third task down here. In just a minute, it's just creating it for me. So here we go. We have the third task. And now they will be executed in this sequence. This is important because for quotes, I want to ensure that I have this header synchronized before the line, because if I don't have the header, the line will fail as it is expected to be tied up to the header. It's looking for the header information before you can insert the line. So it's important that you keep it in the right order here. If I want to move it up, you simply click it and then you can drag it up like that. And you can see I can move it up and down here. So that's the way to do that. I can move this up again. And as I didn't want to have that, I can just go in and delete a task. So this is also how you can get rid of existing tasks in projects that you don't want to use anymore. You can just delete them. So with that, let's go back to the invoices. I believe it has completed by now. Let's look. Yes, so you can see that now we have one invoice synchronized over and one invoice line. So now let's go to the sales system and look at the invoices. Do the same trick here and look at the ID. Take the latest one, that's the one that we want. Now you can see I got my invoice over to the sales system. I got all the information with the bill to address, the amounts, the tax, the freight, the discount, everything of course is coming over as well. You'll also see there is a link to the sales order, so I can jump here to the sales order in sales. And here you can see that now the order has changed status to invoiced, allowing the sales rep to follow the process as well. So that actually concluded the demo here. So with that, I will hand it back to Janice. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you, Christian. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take a moment and bring your attention to a link that I just posted in the messages panel. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference. We ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference or have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, this is your chance to let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And that is going to conclude today's web conference. Attendees may access the web conference recording by the same registration link used to attend today's live broadcast. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Christian and Abhishek, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.